So in part 1, we talked about how the 10 million subscriber Minecraft YouTuber GeorgeNotFound had allegations of being inappropriate with a girl levied against him by the streamer Cattybugs. And the day her allegations came out, he went onto Twitter to clarify that he was going to do a serious stream reacting to it later that day, and that he would never break someone's sexual boundaries or assault anyone. Catty reacts to George saying this by quote tweeting him and sharing this image that says, "We are waiting. Pull whatever you can find. I also have screen recorded everything. I planned on using it to support my case if needed, but please share it on my behalf if you'd like, because we both know what happened. That's why I can sleep at night without scrambling for screenshots to try and twist. That's why you were scared, because me and every other creator know the truth, and you do too. That's something you have to live with. Yes, I was naive, but I have room to change, to grow up. 8 years exactly, and when I'm your age, I'll be 10 times the person you are, and you will always be the 27-year-old still acting like a child. I am not scared of you anymore. I've been waiting so long to say this, but you're a fucking coward. Goodbye for now." Brooke AB responds to Catty by saying, "Thank you for being so brave." Setting Sunset responds by saying, "You really came in with the steel chair. So proud of you, and you were so strong. Enjoy your break, lovely. You deserve it, and so much more." Ev the Beloved retweets Catty with this gif of someone writing fire, and the caption, "Yes, I was naive, but I have room to change, to grow up. 8 years exactly, and when I'm your age, I'll be 10 times the person you are. Get his ass, Katie!" Maya says, "And you will always be the 27-year-old still acting like a child." And she cleared because this man refuses to accept the fact that he's about to hit 30s and isn't in high school anymore. Ari quote tweets her and says, "So basically he assaulted you by putting his hand on your waist, and then after this accident, even though you felt assaulted, you still kept coming back to him and kept cuddling while smiling at him. Even 2 weeks after the incident, you still texted him. Yet you now claim you were a victim?" And if you're wondering how Ari has all of these details, well, he's actually referencing George's response, which he finally did after announcing it earlier that day. Here is what he said in response to the Katie allegations that we showed in part 1.
Recently, a streamer named Cattybugs went live and told a story involving me about sexual assault. So in this stream, I'm going to be addressing it. I'm going to be telling the whole story, so it might not seem like everything is completely relevant, but I do need to tell the whole story for it to make sense and to fully inform you guys. This is my side of the story of the 2 times that I ever interacted with Cattybugs in real life. First time that I met her, it was in Dream's hotel room at VidCon. To give context about Dream's hotel room, essentially, it was a bigger room than average. It's not just a bed in a room like a typical hotel room is. There was a living room, there was a table, and the bedroom was kind of separated from it. And for this reason, we used his hotel room essentially as a place where all of our friends could hang out in. VidCon is a 4-day long event, so we actually used it quite frequently throughout these 4 days. And we had creators, friends in and out of this room throughout the whole event. First night that I actually met Katie, I was with Dream in his hotel room, and Dream was in a group chat with 5 other people. These 5 people included Cattybugs, her best friend, and 3 other of her friends. Now, these 5 people, they were at an official VidCon after party. They wanted Dream to go meet up with them and hang out with them. But Dream actually didn't want to hang out with them, and the reason is because at the time he was wearing his Dream mask a lot. He even suggested that they shouldn't come because he was assuming that they were having more fun where they were. They reassured him that that wasn't the case. They were bored and they wanted him to come. So now these 5 people are trying to come to the hotel, but the problem with that is to get into the hotel, you need to have a VidCon creator badge. And only 2 of the people in the group chat actually had this badge. That was Katie and her best friend. So eventually what happened is Katie and 2 of her other friends came to Dream's hotel room. This was my first time actually meeting them in real life. I didn't even know who they were before meeting them. And then we essentially just were playing drinking games in the hotel room, just having fun, talking with each other, nothing crazy in particular. Now, one thing Katie said retrospectively, looking back at the scenario, is that I was flirting with her throughout the night and that she was uncomfortable with this because of our age difference. At the time, she was 18 and I was 26. She actually assumed I didn't know her age because she had never said it. But then later, I had actually DM'd her on Instagram. And because of this, she says that it is confirmed that I know her age. To give some context to this scenario and to why I didn't know her age, my perspective of things is that I am with people that are over the age of 21 in a scenario where we are doing things that people that are over the age of 21 are doing, like drinking. And also the people that came from an event where they had very heavy security. This was an official VidCon after party. And with previous VidCon after parties, I even had problems getting into these events. There was one time where they didn't let me in because they couldn't confirm the legitimacy of my UK ID. They said they weren't trained to look at foreign IDs. So they didn't even let me in, despite me being 26 at the time. And also, since Katie's stream, I've gone back and reviewed texts from the time, and there was actually a picture where it was shown that they had this 21 plus wristband on one of their wrists. So from my perspective, it's a bunch of 21 plus year olds hanging out. I have no reason to think otherwise, other than her Instagram bio, but I just didn't see it. But anyway, nothing actually particularly happened at this first night that we were hanging out. Everything was very friendly. We went our separate ways, and that's the end of the first night. So we wake up the next day, we do VidCon stuff, and again, the same scenario happens from the night before. They are trying to get him to go out to another party that they were at. Same story, Dream didn't want to go, but was open to them coming here. And again, that is what happened. But this time, their friends were actually all able to get in. I don't know how they did it, but Katie, her best friend, and 3 other of her friends ended up coming to the room, which had me, Dream, and my online friend that I just met. So 8 people total in this room at this point. This night was very similar to the one before. We were just hanging out, playing games, drinking, and just having a good time. So something I actually want to point out before I continue with the rest of the story is the way that she phrases some things in her story. Instead of saying that her and the rest of her friends actually wanted to come to the hotel to hang out with us, she said that one friend was invited by Dream, but she didn't want to go alone. So then they decided to go along with her because they were willing to go anywhere. I just think it's important to note already that the story is slightly different from the reality of it, and I'll be mentioning this a few more times throughout the rest of the story. You can see in these screenshots from the text at the time that they were all trying to come to the hotel, and it wasn't just oh, we're willing to follow her, essentially. They were all in the group chat and part of the discussion to go to the hotel. I also chose to mention my online friend. It doesn't really add to the story, but she never mentioned him or the 8th person that she brought with. So I'm just saying it because that's how it happened, and I want to make sure the story is straight. Another thing that she talks about is how we insisted that she drinks more, and that we insisted on playing drinking games, when this isn't the case. Again, they had already been drinking at this party before they arrived to the hotel room, and they had also been the ones that were asking to play the drinking games. So instead of us insisting that we play it, they were actually the ones that were asking us. And you can see that in the screenshots here. They had actually texted multiple times, specifically wanting to play this drinking game that we had played the night before. And at this point, I was pretty drunk, and so was basically everyone in this room. It was the last night of VidCon. VidCon's a pretty stressful time, and honestly, a lot of people are happy when it's over. So at this point, we then moved to the couch. There was a couch in the room, and I sit next to Katie. She also says, looking back on the scenario, that she confused her nerves for excitement when I sit next to her. But again, at this moment in time, everything was friendly. Nothing sexual had happened. I'm just literally sitting next to her on the couch. And during this, she was laughing, smiling. She gave no indication that she was uncomfortable with me sitting this close to her. She also mentions that she was thinking about my age and that I was a lot older than her. Again, she was 18 and I was 26 at the time. And again, to clarify, I actually didn't know how old she was, despite her claiming that I did, just because it was in her bio. And it was clear to anyone there that she was not uncomfortable with me sitting next to her. Then eventually, 2 of the people that came to the hotel room left. So then it was just down to me, Dream, my online friend, Katie, Katie's best friend, and a 6th mutual friend. Next she says, this is a quote, resorted to playing games on her phone to avoid the awkward situation. Now, I just don't see how this is the case. She's implying that she is using her phone to essentially escape, such an awkward scenario that she's in. But that's just not how it happened. And this is why. She brought up the phone game as kind of a point. The game was honestly the central point of the interaction at this part of the night. It was a very social thing. She was passing the phone around. We were all playing the game and bantering about it, just having fun with the game. So I don't see how she resorted to it and was using it in that context. She wasn't being awkward at all. There was no sense of uncomfortability from her. She was laughing and playing with everyone. I'm not really sure why she phrased it like this. We actually continued to send each other high score updates even weeks after the event. To add further context to this moment, we were all actually sitting on the couch that was in the hotel room playing this game on her phone. During this, me and Katie were at the far end of the couch and we were cuddling together. We had been cuddling for, I'd say, around an hour at this point, playing the game, talking, just having fun. And for clarity, I had my hand around her waist above her clothes. So with her statement where she's saying that she's resorting to playing games on her phone, I just don't really understand it. And I think that the picture that she's painting is really dark, when in reality she seemed very happy with the situation. I also want to address a fact that she claimed. She said that she had answered a question about her age during a drinking game, and we were talking about sex, and that she admitted to everyone in the room that she was 18 and a virgin at the time. I just don't remember this happening. I'm not saying this to just pretend like it didn't happen. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I did not hear it happen. We're not just all sitting down and not moving. It's a chaotic environment. I could have been getting a drink. I could have been talking to someone else. I just did not know that that was said. Another quote from her stream I want to address. She says, "There was more alcohol in the room and we were encouraged to drink some more as they offered the bottles to us. They said they would join us in drinking and insisted on drinking games. They had already been drinking before they arrived. They were drunk." And the way this is phrased, it makes us out to look like we're kind of preying on them and like forcing them to drink when they didn't want to, when that's not the case. And as I mentioned earlier, they were even the ones asking to play the drinking games via the texts before they had even arrived. So then, this is when her most important claim happens. She says, "Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch. He disguised it with a simple, 'Are you ticklish?' I coughed out a no, and still staring at my phone, I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people. The fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked it to be. Again, as I mentioned before, we had previously been cuddling on this couch for around an hour, but I did place my hand on her waist under her shirt. The way it's phrased makes it sound like it just happened out of nowhere, when in reality we had been cuddling for over an hour at this point, and it was not out of nowhere. It was also around half an hour until I started moving my hand further up, and the way it's phrased just makes it seem like it happened pretty instantly and pretty quickly. There was nothing quick about it, it was very slow, and I was very cautious about it and making sure that she was comfortable throughout the process. Me and Katie were very touchy, very cuddly, and very slowly got more intimate. I've always been overly cautious with consent, and this is not just because I'm a creator. I've been like this since before I was a creator, and I think that's just the way I am and just the way it should be. Nothing came out of nowhere. Everything progressed very slowly throughout the night. And also, before I continue, I want to make it clear that the furthest anything ever got was under the shirt touching and cuddling. Now, obviously, people don't typically ask if everything is okay, even such as touching someone's waist under their shirt before they do it. But in this case, I was extremely slow, and she was engaging with me the entire time, laughing, cuddling with me, and even playfully fighting me for the game that we were playing. Again, the quote that she said, he disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?" I coughed out a no. She's implying that it's with malicious intent, and that she coughed out a no would also imply that I should be able to tell that she was uncomfortable with it. She says, later, he made a game out of my embarrassment where he would touch me in certain areas to make me lose the game I was playing. Now, I actually remember this quite vividly. I remember she was playing the game, and there were parts where it would be very easy to lose if you were distracted. And she's right, I did do that. There were points where she was playing the game, and she was at a point where it was easy for her to mess up, and I would, for example, tickle her or like squeeze her, and when I did this, she would laugh, she would turn around and smile at me, or she would play fight with me because I had just made her lose the game. She also says how I didn't speak or move. I remember being afraid to even breathe. I stayed there for a while, hoping my stillness could make me disappear. Now, to reiterate, anytime that I did this, it was met with her either smiling, laughing, play fighting with me, and there was no reason for me to believe that she was uncomfortable with it. She was not moving. She was not speaking. Of course, I don't believe that silence is consent. I just want to make sure that it is abundantly clear. She was visibly and physically responding well to everything that we were doing. I also want to comment on how she said that she had to stand up after many minutes for it to stop. She did get up multiple times throughout the night. For example, to go to the bathroom, to get a drink. Also, when her friends left, she got up to say goodbye to them, and she would come back to the same scenario. I also just want to point out that her best friend was here during this whole process, then afterwards did leave. And I think it is important to note that she made the choice to stay behind for many hours more. And as I mentioned before, she did get up, say goodbye to them, and came back. We were even talking about staying up to wait until 11 a.m., which was the checkout time of the hotel. Since it was the final day, we were like, oh, I don't know if we want to go to sleep for a few hours, might as well just stay up. But that's not what ended up happening. And it's at this time that Katie says that I went to leave and the older guy then decided to leave too. This is phrased in a way that makes me look kind of creepy, to be honest. She's basically saying she left, so I decided to leave too, which is not the case. What actually happened is Dream had decided he was too tired and was going to bed. So the night was over and we all left. She then goes on to tell a story about the elevator and how I joked about it being broken to try get her to go in with me. So Katie actually had her own hotel room on the same floor as Dream. So she actually didn't have to take the elevator. She walked me to the elevator when she didn't have to and said goodnight to me, which was nice of her. I did joke with her about coming in the elevator by pretending that it was broken. I went into the elevator, the doors closed, and I would press the doors open button to make it open again. I did this a few times, and she didn't go along with it, which I respectfully took, obviously, and ended up just going down to my room. So yeah, she didn't have to take the elevator, yet she chose to walk with me to the elevator to say goodnight to me, which I think is interesting given how she's saying how she was so upset with it. And that's essentially the end of the story. This is actually the last time I've seen her in person. We messaged for a bit after, through Instagram DMs and Snapchat. And the way that we talked to each other was always pretty banterous. For example, after the first night that we hung out, but before the second, she'd actually texted me and said, "You better not be in Dream's room tonight or I'm going to shoot your leg. We're just messing with each other." And I'd actually responded to her and said, "Well, guess what? I'm actually here right now." And yeah, after this, we texted for a bit, sometimes daily, sometimes we would take a few days break, even a few weeks at some point. And at some point after VidCon, we were actually both in London at the same time. And she let me know this through her DMs. Now, I will say she didn't come out outright and say, "I'm in London." She did say that she had gone to a place that was known to be a London thing. And I commented on that and asked what she was doing in London. And just to clarify, we did not meet up whilst in London, nor make plans to do so. She was always extremely friendly to me. I was friendly to her. I was very shocked to hear her say the things that she did say during her stream. And then when she started saying more and more details, I realized, wait, this is about me. I was very, very confused, very shocked, and didn't quite know what to think, given I had no impression of any wrongdoing throughout this whole relationship that I had with her. None at all. Like, it was, if anything, it was the opposite. I thought we had a pretty good relationship. Despite the fact that we actually hadn't talked in a while, I thought if I had seen her in real life again, everything would be fine and we would be friends. It was actually around this point, after VidCon had finished and we were messaging, that I found out her age. And since then, I never pursued anything going forward, and I essentially stopped messaging her. Her last message to me was August 1st, 2023, and I haven't replied to her since then. After I watched her stream, I was pretty confused. I didn't understand how her account of the story had been so different from what actually happened. A lot of the facts that she said just didn't happen at all, or were phrased in ways that just make me look as bad as possible. Saying things like, I insisted on her playing drinking games, or that she was frozen in place, or that she was scared. She was having fun. She was enjoying herself. She was showing this with her body language, with the way that she smiled, the way that she laughed, and just her overall general demeanor. Now, one thing that I think is very important to differentiate here is that I do believe that she regrets being affectionate with me, and that really does make me feel terrible. I never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable or regret their interactions with me or anything along those lines, regardless of if it's sexual or not. And I am truly really sorry if I contributed towards that. But what's important to differentiate is that she was uncomfortable with this after the fact and not during. She says, quote, "At the time of it all, I convinced myself I was lucky. I was lucky that it had happened to me. I was excited to be around such big creators, to be at that convention in general." Now, actually, I have had a similar scenario to this where I was in I had a sexual experience with someone where in the moment I was perfectly happy with it happening, but then afterwards I regretted it. And I'm not saying this to get any form of sympathy. I'm not looking for that. That is not the case at all. I'm simply saying this because I can see the similarities in the situation. Now, I'm not mad at the person that I was in this sexual experience with at all. I have no negative thoughts on them. I simply did not like how it ended up. And if I could go back and not do it, I wouldn't have. I wanted to do it in the moment, but then changed my mind later, which is completely valid. You're completely allowed to feel that way. But what isn't okay, and I think is just completely unfair, is to act as if I am the bad person in the scenario because you changed your mind later. I also want to separate this from abuse and certain scenarios that other people have dealt with recently or just in general. I think it is completely fine to come to terms with your abuse over time and realize that it was bad for you and a terrible situation to be in, and to then look badly back on that person. That is completely valid, but this is different. Again, this all happened within a 4-hour period, 3-4 hour period, and I was not given any sign of discomfort, unhappiness, or anything along those lines. And again, it was the opposite of that. She was happy, she was laughing, she was smiling, and as far as I know, everyone else in the room would have thought the same at the time. So now what I'm thinking is, why would she come out and say it like this? Why is she saying this? Now, I don't think she's purposefully being malicious or trying to hurt me or ruin my career or anything like that. But what I do think is that she is surrounded by a friend group that completely despises me and my friend group. But I think after VidCon, she obviously had told some of her friends about what happened. Whether or not that was in a negative connotation, I do not know. I wasn't part of these conversations, of course, but she clearly told them about this scenario. Now, when these people that are around you all completely despise me and my friends, they're obviously going to look on this poorly. To add context to this, she actually mentions in her stream, I remember a friend seeing me in the lobby on the way, and they were worried by the way I was acting and asked if I was okay. I was really drunk, and it was an eerie feeling like they could sense something was wrong. Now, this person is in Katie's friend group, and they were concerned that a group of 5 people were going up to Dream's room to join 3 additional people, which is an interesting concern to have. I actually have heard from another source that overheard this conversation and thought it was quite strange that she was worried about this. Now, I think it seems very likely that after 8 months of you being around friends that hate me and my friends and constantly talking badly about us publicly as well and privately, obviously that is going to affect the way that you view the experience. And it's going to make you look at it differently. You're going to second guess it. You're going to be thinking about it. And clearly it changed the way that she thought about it. And I just think it's completely unfair to judge me and my actions based on how you feel about it now, 8 months later, versus how you felt at the time. Because at the time, you were not uncomfortable with it. And I know I'm repeating myself a million times, but I have to. You were smiling, happy, laughing, playing along with it, everything.
So after GeorgeNotFound came out with his whole perspective on what happened that night, someone else who was also there, which is the YouTuber Dream, joined in and gave his perspective of what happened that night on Reddit. It got reposted by Mari on Twitter with the caption, "Dream just posted his perspective and opinion on Reddit. The post is titled, 'My honest and open point of view, Dream.' Based on hearing both the recounts of stories, being there myself, and talking to everyone that was there afterwards, George's recounting of events is much closer to what actually took place. I think people expressing that someone did not consent to touching or cuddling because they did not verbally speak it is extremely dishonest. You can clearly consent without verbally specifically saying something, just as you can nod your head to say yes. Silence is not consent, but I was there, and although I did not know any sexual touching had taken place, I can say for a matter of fact that their interactions were extremely positive throughout the night, and she had many opportunities of separation, even getting up and down off the couch and laying back with him after the alleged sexual sexual assault took place, and her best friend leaving after what took place, and her choosing to stay for hours. No one that was there had anything but positive experiences to share until many months later, and I was shocked to hear anything at all. Everyone was already drinking, and in no way was them drinking along with everyone else an inappropriate action. Everyone was drinking and everyone was in and out. Yes, she was not 21. No, it's not a normal thing to stop creators at a convention, or anyone for that matter, from drinking because of that. Many of the people I've seen criticize this fact already have very publicly drunk many times with under 21 content creator, and are not being impartial. I will agree with George in saying there is a group of content creators that have a very large hatred for me. I'm not exactly sure why. I have some ideas, but it's been going on for over a year now. Multiple of these content creators have spread total lies about me, and take any opportunity they can to spread negative rumors. Katie is not one of them, to be clear, but she is friends with many of them, and this is even something we discussed in person. I obviously can't say for certain that this has anything to do with what she said, but I can assume it had an impact on the lens she viewed George through. One of these content creators that used to be on the Dream SMP spread that they asked me about the grooming allegations when they happened, and that I proceeded to ban them from the Dream SMP Discord server to hide it. This is completely false. They were never banned from the Discord. They left randomly themselves. I answered every question they had over text and volunteered to answer any more. This lie was incredibly harmful, and still has effects to this day. This is one of the many lies or exaggerations they've spread. Both Katie and her other friends there spoke about how this group in the UK, who Katie is best friends with, despise me, and they are not sure why. I talked positively about change, and hoping one day they would come around. Months after the incident, one of this group tweeted accusing me of bringing 18-year-old girls at VidCon to my hotel room to drink. I was shocked at this, and immediately looked into what he was talking about. This was 2 months after VidCon. He was talking about this. I didn't know Katie beforehand, and she was already drunk and drinking, and essentially one-plussing with an overage friend of mine. I even suggested they don't come. After this is when I had a conversation with Ghosty, Katie's best friend who was there, about what he was saying, and how it was ridiculous, where she agreed. I was confused as to why he was saying what he was saying, as it was about me, and no one that was there had any idea what he was talking about. Katie was avoidant of clarifying anything to them or defending me, and was careful with how she worded things and texted me about it. It was speculated by everyone that was there that night that it was because she is good friends with the UK group, and she didn't want to lose them as friends if she defended me or my character, or said anything positive over text. Both Caddy and Ghosty expressed that their interactions with me were not representative of how the UK group talks about me. We talked all positively afterward about those nights, and even talked about meeting up again. I had no impression of anyone having any negative opinions about anything at all that happened at VidCon, even after directly talking to and asking people there specifically about it. I feel terrible for Katie, and I believe she genuinely has extreme feelings about this, regardless of how they formed. I am sorry that I at all contributed to this negative period of her life. I would hope that she knows that I had absolutely no negative intentions at all. I really thought she was a great, fun person to be around. I do not feel bad for any of the people masquerading as heroes though, that they are doing so for personal vendettas, in relation to this or other accusations, including my own. Just like you should not trust that creators are always good people, you should not trust that creators' supportive actions are always done with good intentions. Many creators that express to me behind the scenes that even if the allegations are true, they wouldn't care because they are not a big deal, are some of the same people that were later praised for no longer associating with me due to these allegations. Many creators never asked me any questions at all, even sent private messages of support, and then chose to ask me questions the same day I had drama with another creator they were better friends with. Many creators pretended to not be associated with me publicly, making jokes off the potential abuse, while privately being positive to me. Other creators dropped me as soon as I was no longer working on projects they were heavily invested in, but were perfectly fine playing dumb when it benefited them for their next big stream. Many creators that knew about this specific situation for a long time and hated me long before it continued to make slights, without me ever having any idea why they were doing it. They publicly attacked me far more than ever saying anything negative towards George, even though I had no idea of anything remotely about this situation being a thing, and they thought that that he was a horrible assaulter. It's incredibly obvious to me that this is because they already hated me, and not because they care about any potential victim, even if they are close friends. Creators are not always who you think they are. Even the ones that seem the most proactive about supporting victims can be using vulnerable people to push their own agendas, whether it's their audience, actual victims, or friends. Support victims because they deserve it, not when it benefits you. I will never stand for abuse, and have shown that on many occasions, even with my closest friends, even my best friends. I feel like this post has been very negative, so I just want to end this positively. Most creators aren't like this. There is a lot of good in the world. There is a lot of kindness and honesty and love. There are so many creators that are fair and kind and truthful, and no one should give up hope on creators in general. It's just like everywhere else in life. There's a balance. The bad is just amplified on social media as everything is under a microscope. I don't think all is negative, and I think having these conversations is important and helpful for everyone, including victims and anyone learning and growing. This is all I have to say, as there is no more information to be gathered, and I would like to end the horrible cycle of drama for myself at the moment. Haley responds to Dream's Reddit statement that Mari shared on Twitter by saying, "It's almost like she was drunk. She sat back down with him. She was drunk. Their interactions were so positive. She was drunk. You cannot consent if you're drunk, especially if you weren't verbally consenting. Like, what?" Smiley says, "GeorgeNotFound still sexually touched a girl without verbally asking her, and he didn't know her prior at all. That's creepy as fuck. Also, victims act weird sometimes when they are scared, and may feel trapped when they aren't and stay." I don't really believe Dream though. Joe says, "Why is he posting this on Reddit? He posted his feelings on the Wilbur situation. What's different about this one?" Kay says, "I believe that it's possible both Katie and George are being truthful. Assuming they are, though, I don't understand why they appear to think Katie coming out with this was supposed to be some sort of malicious attack on the Dream Team out of dislike for them." Kavos reacts to GeorgeNotFound's response by showing Amesy's response to George that we showed in part 1 and saying, "GeorgeNotFound just released a video clearing up these SA allegations. Let's not forget the absolute pieces of shit who played judge, jury, and executioner on such serious life-ruining allegations, and who didn't even want to let George speak." Richard C responds to Kavos by saying, "Going to throw in some legal info for those who aren't in the know. Silence is not consent as misinformation. There is a legal doctrine called mistake of fact as to consent, which argues that, given context, a reasonable person would have thought there was consent." Nicholas Diorio says, "So when are we going to be exposing the people buying Caddy's alcohol all weekend, getting her into 21 plus parties at VidCon, and bringing her up to rich YouTubers' hotel rooms? Seems pretty irresponsible, no? When do those names get leaked? When are we going to hear from Katie's friends? God, I hope no one who left their drunk 18-year-old friend in the famous YouTuber's hotel room tries to moral grandstand." Hunter tweets about the situation by saying, "I hope every commentary YouTuber gets thrown in a cell forever, dude. What the fuck do you mean you want proof that someone was sexually assaulted? What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck do you even expect to receive as proof? Do you expect women to Nvidia shadowplay them getting assaulted? What the fuck? There is nothing wrong with believing victims, my man." Britzel responds by saying, "The same dudes who spent a week shitting on Pokimane for selling cookies. I play with myself" responds with a deleted tweet from Hunter that says, "If Dream or GeorgeNotFound saved your life, that shit is worthless." They comment on this by saying, "You were cooking here," and then Hunter responds, "People were wishing suicide on other people in the quote retweets, and I felt bad." Zilux responds to Hunter by saying, "Don't like any of these people, but I'm genuinely concerned with our society if we're now saying fuck evidence and just trust everything every person says." Hunter responds, "That's not what I said at all." And then Zilux responds, "You said that if someone says they were SA'd, to believe them since they're no good enough proof to see it as anything otherwise. Am I wrong? It's easy to say these things like that when the allegations aren't being thrown at you." Michael responds to Hunter by saying, "Who said that?" And then Hunter responds, "I'm pre-firing because I know that pussy Lorex is gonna say it." The Greatest Worst replies, "You just know Tom Dark is gonna say it." Tom then responds to Hunter's tweet by saying, "This kind of mentality is absolute cancer. On one side, there are people who immediately call potential victims liars. That should be pushed back against. But cases like Quite and Dream, who were both falsely accused, it's clear false accusations do happen. Calling these girls who accuse Wilbur and GeorgeNotFound liars with no proof of such is insane, but just as insane to immediately believe them 100% with no evidence, and say people who don't should be in a cell forever, dude. The most responsible position to take with allegations is to exercise caution. Don't relentlessly shit on potential victims, but be open to the idea that the other side of the story could change things completely." Riley says, "You typically don't ask if you can touch someone's waist. face. Fucking jail? Malachi Rose says, and to say this right after being like, I'm overly cautious about consent? M says, not everyone does. Life is not black and white. This situation is not black and white. A lot of physical human communication is formed through body language, which can be misunderstood, especially when alcohol is involved, which is why verbal consent and discussion is important. Cam quote tweets Riley and says, I need everyone to remember that this was a teenage girl who had just turned 18. He was only 2 years off of being over a century older than her. Go to hell, you disgusting piece of shit, GeorgeNotFound. Riley quote tweets herself by sharing this clip from George's response video and saying, electric chair, GeorgeNotFound.
Clear that the furthest anything ever got was under the shirt touching and cuddling. Now obviously people don't typically ask if everything is okay, even such as touching someone's waist under their shirt before they do it. But in this case, I was extremely slow and she was engaging with me the entire time, laughing, cuddling with me, and even playfully fighting me.
Love George Forever responds, bro, they were cuddling and she was completely fine. Riley responds, did you skim the part where he said the furthest anything got was cuddling? And under the shirt touching as a 18-year-old and a 26-year-old. H Burner 1234 says, honestly, I'm with George on this one. He's pretty much explained it in a way that's really realistic. You are just angry because you've been on Twitter for so long. You just forgot how real life experiences are when you were drunk. Grow up, man. Keemstar clips this reaction from a Minecraft streamer to the entire situation and captions it by saying, GeorgeNotFound tickled an 18-year-old drunk girl's tummy, and this is the reaction.
My friends, or anybody else as a scapegoat for your fucking sexual abuse is disgusting. It's fucking disgusting, okay? My friend cried in my fucking arms about this, and you're on stream denying it all, denying the fucking hurt that you caused to her. You are disgusting fucking people. You and all of your abuse sympathizer friends, you are all fucking horrible. Seriously, you are so wrong for trying to displace this fucking sexual assault onto anyone but yourselves. You are a 26-year-old man, 27 now, trying to fucking put the blame on 18-year-olds that you don't fucking know. What the fuck is wrong?
And that's about it for the reaction to GeorgeNotFound's response. But things escalated when Katie responded again, as well as George and Dream making new responses about a day after their initial ones. It's a bunch of crazy stuff that's going on in this situation. It's absolutely wild. So if you don't want to miss the continuation of this in part 3, don't forget to subscribe to this channel with notifications on. While you wait for that video to come out, don't forget to leave a like on this one if you enjoyed, and let me know what you think about the situation as it's unfolded so far in the comment section below. But with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.